So today's sharing is on the passage that we chanted during the puja. This passage is on reflecting or recollecting the Buddha's sublime qualities. And very often we do it instinctively or quite automatically because we've done it many, many times. And so when the time comes for us to do the chant for recollection or reflecting on the Buddha's qualities, it comes from our mind very easily, subconsciously in fact, And so very often, many of us do not spend time or make the effort to really understand what it is we are chanting. And it is very important for us as Buddhists who want to advance, who want to progress on the noble path, to have a very good understanding of the significance of the chanting verses. And in part, this series of talks on understanding our noble teacher, the Buddha. Over the Sundays, we will go through the three jewels. There will be a discussion on the Buddha. There will be more after this. Then there will be discussion on recollecting the Dhamma, and it will be rounded off with an understanding of the qualities of the Sangha, so that every time we chant, these qualities will appear in our mind. So it will not just be a verbal effort. It has to be also a mental as well as a spiritual effort. There will be an understanding in our head as well as our hearts during the time that we chant. So knowing the Buddha is an important part of our progress, our study of the Buddha's teachings, because he is the teacher. He was the one who taught the Dhamma to the disciples, and from the disciples we get the message that he wanted to share with us many centuries ago. So we know that according to the Buddhist era, 2,564 years ago, a fully enlightened Buddha appeared in this world. And according to our tradition and our records, the fully enlightened Buddha actually gained this status on the full moon day of Vesak. So this is according to our tradition, our practices. But what does it really mean to us? What did it mean actually to the masses of people in India at that time when the Buddha, when this ascetic, actually before he became the Buddha, we call him the Bodhisattva, Gautama. What did it really mean? And even today, what does it mean to have a fully enlightened Buddha appear in the world, even though we say it was 2,564 years ago? Was it a momentous happening, an incident? This is what we need to understand, because I remember when I was young and my grandmother was very religious. She really devoted a lot of her life to religious practices. And of course, in those days, before we met the late chief, Venerable K3 Dhammananda, we did what was common to most Buddhists at that time. So our practices was a mixture of the Taoist, the Confucianist, and a little bit of the Buddhist. And it would not be right to say I didn't know about the Buddha during those days. Because when we went to the temples, the Thai temple, in Petaling Jaya, I remember that my grandmother took me to the Thai temple many years ago. Yeah, and that's when the monks stayed in wooden huts. Yeah, the shrine hall was already up, but the monks would stay in the wooden huts. Yeah, and she would say, pay respect, bye bye, the chief monk. And then we go into the shrine hall and she said bye bye to the image of the Buddha. So the Buddha was very familiar to me, but not in the way that I have come to understand the Buddha later and also today. Because when I came into contact with the Theravada monks at the Brickfields Buddhist Mahavihara, then only I began to really understand. Yeah, and I was put in the Dhamma school, and they said, you must learn this. And so I learned the same chanting as what we did just now, many years ago. But it was all automatic. And when the teacher said, can you do this chant? Yes, sir, I can do it for you. And I chanted and chanted and chanted. Yeah, and it was very enjoyable, but I did not have a clear understanding. There was really not much significance from me, of course, in what I was chanting. But later on, many years, and that was, in fact, when I became more active and I began to listen, and also interact with the late Chief Reverend, that I slowly got to understand about whom the Buddha was. Yeah, and at that time there was no organized classes. There were the talks that the late chief would give, and every now and then, when I went to pay him visits, he would say certain things, and I would, of course, reflect and remember what he said. But the important thing is, when we as Buddhists now come to the centers to learn about the Buddha, we should, because he is our teacher, and we take him as the sublime teacher, because no one else can teach what he taught us. We should understand whom he really was. What were his qualities? What was the Buddha really all about? And so, in my own study and my own journey of practice, I think I have come to a position where I really appreciate the nature and the contribution of the Buddha to the world. No one at that time really understood how the Buddha would change the world. In India, when he was born, and then when he left the palace, and finally when he gained the enlightenment, no human being really knew what this Buddha was going to do. In fact, many people, and there were many religious teachers alive at that time. In the records, there's always mention of that teacher saying this, that teacher saying that. And they saw the Buddha as a competitor. They didn't want the Buddha to go on to their turf, meaning to say, they didn't want the Buddha to take away their disciples, their followers, and people who would donate to them. They saw the Buddha as another player in this religious game. They did not understand that a fully enlightened Buddha is a very rare figure in the existence of the world, in the existence of not just the world system, which is the universe. So for today, I thought I would share as much as possible my understanding, what I have come to discover about the Buddha, and the tremendous effect that the enlightenment of the Buddha has had on the mankind, not just mankind, also living beings as a whole. So we know that after the Buddha gained his enlightenment, he began teaching, and his teachings has gone to different corners of the world, to the cold countries of the north, to the hot countries of the south. So we have many interpretations of the Buddha. And there was one time I used to ask the late Chief Reverend, Venerable Kesri Dhammananda, how come in our different traditions, there are so many Buddhas? Because when you go to the Mahayana temples, and when you go to the Vajrayana Tibetan temples, and even in certain Theravada temples, they would have their different ways of showing the Buddha. In fact, I asked the late chief, how come there are these Buddhas of wisdom? There is the Buddha of medicine. There is the Buddha of learning, etc., etc. How come there are so many Buddhas around? And the late chief would say, and I remember this very clearly, they said that human beings, because of their unwise, they are not able to understand the Buddha nature, the wisdom of the Buddha. That's why they break the Buddha into so many parts. Because when you break the whole into many parts, then it's easier to understand. Because in the human mind, as Buddhism began to spread to different parts of the world, it was a great challenge for human beings to understand that one man, one human being had so many great qualities. He was able to teach, he was able to understand, he was able to help people. And so they took his personality, his abilities, and broke it up into many, many different aspects. And then they created the Buddha for that particular aspect. So if you talk about the Buddha of wisdom, they created the Buddha that is the Buddha that specializes in wisdom. If you talk about the Buddha of learning, there is a Buddha created of learning. They are, in fact, all the same person, but made easier, divided, separated, and personified as different beings. It was made easier for the ordinary human being to understand. So that in different times, let's say they want to pass their exams, they will go and pay respect to the Buddha of learning. And if they are very troubled, they will go and pay respect to the Buddha of compassion. So that the Buddha of compassion will have compassion on them and try to make their life much, much easier. And as we study, and as we go deeper into the real personality of the Buddha, and this is done through study and practice. Not just study, you have to put into practice. Because it is in the practice that the master's expertise is actually revealed. Because when you practice, you will experience what the teacher said. I mean, it happens even when we are in school. When you learn science, the teacher will say, go and do this experiment. And after this experiment, you will understand this. And so this is what we have to do. We follow the Buddha's teachings. We should do good, avoid evil, and purify the mind. This is the three great pillars of the Buddha's teachings. So don't leave out any aspect. Yeah, avoid evil, do good, purify the mind. And when you do all these three, we will all come nearer, yeah, to the Buddha. We will all become deserving disciples of the Buddha when we study and practice what he taught us. So for today, let us take this time to examine the qualities of the enlightened Buddha. And we won't do all of it, yeah, at one go. There will be different speakers after this, yeah, and they will explain different sections. Yeah, and when we put it all together, we will have a more complete understanding. So what are the qualities of an enlightened Buddha? What does it mean, for a human being to gain enlightenment? And so when we understand this, the qualities, and the significance of enlightenment, the next time we chant, Itipiso Bhagava Arahant Samma Sambuddho, etc., there will be great faith. There will be the saddha that will appear in our heart and in our mind. And then we will chant it with more devotion because we know what we are chanting. It's not just words from a book, from a CD, from the sound system. It is what we understand, in our head and in our heart. These are the qualities of the great teacher. So the first that this is the Buddhanussati verse chanted in total. This is the whole verse. So we chanted just now, Itipiso Bhagava Arahant Samma Sambuddho Vijja Charana Sampanno Sugato Loka Vidu Anuttaro Purisa Dhamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagava. And as the ending, the word T. Buddho Bhagavati. So today we will not look at all. We will only look at three, which will be Arahant, very important. Samma Sambuddho, that was his title, the Samma Sambuddha. What is this title all about? And then we also look at the next quality, Vijja Charana Sampanno. So in this verse, there are actually 9 qualities. Nava means 9. The 9 qualities of the Buddha. And we look at it in groups of 3. So today's group of 3 is, we hope that we will have a deeper understanding of the meaning of the Arahant, the Samma Sambuddho, and Vijja Charana Sampanno. Firstly, the Arahant. The Buddha was an Arahant. And when we know this meaning, we will know, firstly, the relation of the Buddha with the truth, with the reality of suffering. Because an Arahant, firstly, is a being who has overcome all defilements and therefore is totally stainless. We have not overcome our defilements. We go about our everyday lives, we stumble here, we stumble there, we make our mistakes, and then we do good, yes. We do things that are beneficial to ourselves, but we also do things that are very, very detrimental, not good, for our progress, because we don't really have the big picture. We don't understand the width and the depth of the reality that we have found ourselves in, right now, in this present moment. We don't understand it. So we go to the Buddha to try and understand it. And the Buddha, having completed the journey of understanding the reality of existence, he explains it to us. It was not that he read a book somewhere. It was not that he heard it from somebody. And it wasn't that, his teachers told him about this. No, it was through his own discovery that he was able to overcome his defilements. And overcoming the defilements that give us suffering means that he then became, from an ordinary person, he became a person that did not suffer anymore. He, of course, still existed in his human body. And he gained enlightenment at the age of 35. Yeah, we have learned that. And he passed away at the age of 80. And at the age of 80, he was no longer a young man. He had all these bodily ailments, but his mind was clear and sharp, yeah, and free of the suffering. So that's why we say he is totally stainless. The causes that give us suffering, he has cut them. He has gotten rid of them completely, so he doesn't suffer. All the defilements that contribute to our suffering, that is with us, yeah, who are still non-Arahants. All these defilements are still swimming everywhere. And while we mix, we are still interacting with the Dhamma, and we mix with good people, like fellow Nalandians, yeah, who are always very mindful and always very, very polite. We are okay. But when we go out there and we mix with others, can we be mindful of what we are supposed to do? Yeah, can we be mindful of our thoughts and our actions? So this is the important lesson that we have learned, yeah, about our defilements that are still with us. We have to take care and be mindful so that, yeah, we don't make mistakes that we will be sorry for later on. So that's the important quality. He has overcome all defilements. And we as Buddhists, the disciples, we want to walk this journey and clear the defilements. The Arahant, yeah, this Buddha, the Arahant, has cleared all his defilements, cut them off, severed them completely, so that they no longer have any influence or effect on him. So he is known as the Aseka. Aseka means he who has finished his training. He does not need any more training. In fact, we are called Seka. And that is why we took the precepts. Yeah, the precept is a training vehicle. It's a training, in fact, opportunity. So Sikha means training. Yeah, Panatipata Veramani Sikha. We take this training. We take this mindful state of mind in order to avoid making mistakes that is influenced by our existing defilements. So the Arahant, the Buddha, is Asika. He finished his training. He can say what many of the Arahants say, you know, this great phrase in the books that we read. They say, done is what had to be done. This is their purpose, to complete the journey, to cut off all the suffering, and to really see, yeah, the experience for themselves, yeah, the benefits of Nibbana. So he is also the accomplished one. As I said, his training is complete. He is not a trainee. We are trainees. You know, we need more training in order to be like this Arahant. He is also, because he is Arahant, he is worthy to receive gifts. And he does no harm, even in secret. Which means, yeah, that when he is alone, in private, yeah, he doesn't do the things that he doesn't want people to see him do. Yeah, some personalities are like that. Famous, when they are famous, in front of everyone, they are perfect saints. But when they go and retire to their own private space, who knows what they are doing? Yeah, and we sometimes find out that people that we respected as being very good, very virtuous people were not as virtuous as we thought. But the Arahant, they have no desire, they have no motivation to do wrong, even in secret, even in private. There's no compunction, there's no motivation. In the public, they are like that. In private, they are also like that, because that is the nature of having no defilements. There is no this suspicious characteristics, devious intentions in their mind. All of those are gone in the Arahant. So at the end of his life or her life, there are female Arahants. He does not take another birth because there is no energy to produce another birth. In order to take another birth, at the time of dying, we must have this craving, tanha. If we have craving, the karmic energy will, in fact, the karmic energy will look for a link, will produce a link for the next life. And this link, due to craving, pulls us into another life. That's us, because we are not Arahants. We are ordinary worldlings. And to have another life is going to be our lot. It is our prospect. It's not easy to escape unless some of us who are very special can attain this arahantship. And then they say, no more existences for me. They will realize, they will experience the liberation of Nibbana. So let me tell you this, as a comparison. Those people, those beings who attain arahantship, like the Buddha, and from the time they pass away, they have described it as living in a burning house. They are not dead, they are still alive. They are living still in a house, but that house is a burning house. Imagine burning, staying in a burning house. So what does this mean? To the Arahant, this human body is the burning house. They cannot die yet. So they still have to live, but they have to look after the human body. And this human body is a great burden to them. Their minds are free minds. This body captures them. This body ties them to existence. So can we say that they are looking forward to passing away? In a way, yes, because when they are alive, the mind is free, the body is free. That is the nature of an Arahant. So the Buddha stayed around. He lived for another 45 years in order to share his teachings so that other beings can come to this state, the state of freedom from suffering. So there is this Dhammapada verse which I would like to share with you. It is absolutely beautiful. And there is a story behind it. It was uttered by the Buddha to the great doctor, the physician Jivaka. And the story was, the Buddha was hurt because somebody tried to kill him. But you cannot kill the Buddha. The Buddha must live out his natural lifespan in this world. Nothing in this world can kill a Buddha, but you can hurt a Buddha. So the Buddha was hurt, and he was bleeding. And the great doctor, Jivaka, came to treat him. They put a bandage, clean, put medicine, put a bandage. And he said to the Buddha, please look after yourself. I have to go somewhere to attend to another patient. The medicine on your foot and the bandage, I will come back and remove it. Because if I don't remove it, it will be very hot. By tonight, before you take your rest, I will come back and remove this bandage. But he went to attend to other patients, and because of the security in the city, yeah, the locks and the gates and all that, he could not get back to the Buddha. And the next day, he rushed to the Buddha early in the morning, and he said to the Buddha, I'm very sorry, I couldn't make it back last night. Yeah, and if I don't remove it, you will feel very hot. So how do you feel now? Yeah, he was very concerned. And this is the reply of the Buddha. The Buddha said, Gatta dino visokassa vipamutassa sabba di sabba ganta pahinasa parilahona vichati. He said, for him whose journey is ended, the Arahant, who is free from sorrow and from defilements, who has destroyed all the fetters, distress, pain, yeah, difficulty is no more found. Right? So this is the answer of the Buddha to the great Dr. Jivaka. So from here, we can understand the state of the Buddha's mind. Next, we go on to Samma Sambuddho. And there are some very interesting stories to tell here. I hope you will be patient with me if I tell you some stories. The meaning of Samma Sambuddho means that the Buddha gained enlightenment through his own efforts. There was no teacher. I mean, before he gained enlightenment, he went and practiced under different teachers. But for this enlightenment, he walked the way on his own. He was the discoverer. Yeah, he was the one who cleared the path for the rest of us, yeah, to study and understand. So because of that, and it's not easy to be the pioneer. It's not easy to go into jungle, yeah, and open up the way for others. The person who does that has to be extra strong, has to be very, very different, yeah, with courage, bravery, and has to know what he actually is doing. So because of these qualities, the Siddhartha Gautama was able to bear it and was able to open up the way. Yeah, and for that, we call him the Samma Sambuddha. He attained enlightenment through his own efforts. You can imagine everybody in the world at that time was confused. They were all ignorant. They did not know the way to the real end of suffering. Yeah, they did not know the way to gain true happiness. So they were all stumbling around. One was teaching this, one was teaching that. Some said this, some said that. It was only the Buddha with his wonderful and very, very dedicated mind, was able to clear the way through the jungle, through the thick undergrowth of ignorance and confusion, to chop away at this and gain true enlightenment, full enlightenment. Yeah, when he also became an Arahant, cleared away his defilements, he also gained the wisdom of a Samma Sambuddha. Samma Sambuddha. Very, very unusual. And he fully understands the Four Noble Truths, which forms the core, the essence of his teachings. The nature, I need to state this. It's quite important for understanding who we are and what we are as disciples of the Buddha. There are theistic religions in the world. What does theistic mean? Theistic mean they believe in a creator God. The foundation of their beliefs and their practices is God, this creator, created everyone. So this is their principle. of the theistic religions. So if a person belongs to a theistic religion, he or she must make good relationships, must create good relationships with the Creator. Because the Creator created you, you must be on good terms with the Creator so that at the end of your life, you can join this Creator. The whole of the religious practice, the whole of the religious existence of those in the theistic religions is to reach out, and be favorably looked upon by the Creator. That's how they go. This is their important principle. We are not known, Buddhists and Taoists and other religions, but for Buddhists, we are not known as theistic religions. That means our system of study and practice does not revolve around a Creator God. So if it does not revolve around a Creator God, what does it revolve around? So the Buddha in his teachings have shown us the teachings that he gave us revolves around seeing the reality. And what reality is this? The reality is the Four Noble Truths. That's the core and the essence of our study and practice. And the essence is the Four Noble Truths tells us about this quality in the world. And this quality is called suffering. I don't like to use this word suffering. The quality of dukkha. Because dukkha is very wide. Suffering is very, very narrow. Dukkha can mean anything from a little irritation to the great suffering of painful diseases, where you get, a very, very difficult time, when you suffer. So dukkha can be anything in between. It means that we cannot find real satisfaction or real perfection in our quest for happiness, except through understanding our own suffering, the reality of suffering. So the Buddha fully understands the Four Noble Truths, in which he explains suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the way to the end of suffering. So this is, dear brothers and sisters, the core of our study and practice. He is able to understand whatever he turns his mind to, which means with his intellect, his mind. He might not know something, but if he turns his mind towards it, his perceptive abilities, this also happens to us, but in a very, very much smaller scale. We might not understand everything that people tell us about. Because sometimes, my kids say, do you understand this? I say, I don't really understand it, but you give me a while, I will figure it out. And this is what the Buddha could do. You gave him some time and he will understand the situation completely. That was the nature of his mind, right? So he was able to understand whatever was happening in the world. And he was able to teach all sentient beings. Not only did he understand, he could teach all sentient beings the way to the attainment of liberation, to be free of the suffering. That's the Samma Sambuddha. He's able to teach because the scope of his ability to understand the minds of other beings was incomparable. So he was able to teach them the way specific to themselves, unique to themselves, that way to overcome suffering, to really understand the Four Noble Truths. There is another class of Buddha who attain enlightenment by themselves. They are called Jigga Buddhas, but they do not have the full range of ability of a Samma Sambuddha. The time of training is much less. So they cannot explain to others. But our Buddha could explain in detail, to every living being that could be trained, so that they could also attain the end of suffering, Nibbana. So from the sutta in Anguttara Nikaya, this is what the Buddha said. This is what Gautama the Buddha said about a Buddha. It is not a verse of showing off. It is not a conceited description. It is a factual description from the Buddha about the Buddhas. He said in this Agga-pasada Sutta, of living beings, all living beings in this universe, be they legless or two-legged, four-legged or many-legged, with form or formless. They can have a tangible form, solid form, or no form. Percipient, that means they can understand sharply, or non-percipient, not so sharp, a little bit slow in understanding, or non-percipient, that means they really do not understand what's happening around them. There are beings like that. In fact, they are called Brahma beings who are sleeping all the time. The Tathagata, the Arahant, the fully self-awakened one, is reckoned the best of them. So this is to say, this is a factual description by the Buddha of all the living beings. And there are countless living beings in this universe. The Buddhas who appear from time to time is right at the top. They are the top of the pyramid. There's no one better than the Buddha, because they have done what others could not do. They have finished the journey. They have the intellectual and spiritual capacity to lead others, to see things that others cannot see. So for that reason, in this sutta, the Buddha describes a Buddha. The Buddha describes a Buddha as being the best of living beings. So that is the status. So there are periods of training, which I will not go into in detail, because of time. But I will just mention, in order to become a Samma Sambuddha, this being has to go through actually 4 periods of training. The first period is pre-mental aspiration. And this is where the being thinks about becoming a Buddha. So many people in this world, they think that they want to become Buddhas, because the concept of a Buddha, the idea, the status of a Buddha is very, very sublime and virtuous. So some people say, I want to become a Buddha. So they just have the idea. But when they start training and putting into practice the requirements of enlightenment, they cannot take it fully. So they don't last till the next stage, which is mental aspiration. So when the person has gone through that, it's actually not a real stage, because many people drop off. They think they want to become Buddhas, but they drop off after a few lifetimes. They can't take the challenges. But those who complete that, they know in their minds that they are on the path to Buddhahood, which takes them to the next stage. They begin to tell others. It becomes verbal. And those who are near to them, they are close companions, they are good friends. They will mention to them, I am on my way to Buddhahood. I am practicing to become a fully enlightened Buddha. So those around them will start to support them. You must do this, you must do this. And then after that, at the end, or actually at the beginning of the last phase of training, this is now called the period of action. This being, this Bodhisattva, has to fine-tune everything that is lacking in order to get to where he wants to be, to gain the full enlightenment. And this is where what we see in this picture. This Buddha is not Gautama the Buddha. This Buddha was a great Buddha of the past called Dipankara Buddha. Our Buddha is this man lying on the ground. Yeah, and he was born as the ascetic Sumedha, who paid respect to Buddha Dipankara. And it was at this meeting with Buddha Dipankara that he received what is called the sure proclamation, the sure confirmation. The Bodhisattva must get a declaration from a fully enlightened Buddha. That means the Buddha, a fully enlightened Buddha, must recognize him. He is on definite. He will not change course. He is on his way to becoming a fully enlightened Buddha. And he will not drop off. He's not like those who suddenly think that, you know, I had enough. Yeah, I will go and do other things. Yeah. And here at this stage, he was fully qualified to become an Arahant. He could have ended the journey there and then. He could have become one of those monks, yeah, under the Buddha Dipankara, and that would have been the end of his journey. He would gain Arahantship, and that would be it. But he did not. He did not. He said, I'm going further, right? And for a very, very long time, yeah, universe comes and universe will go. Our universe, I think, is now, I think they say it's about 17 billion years of human years. And it will go on for a very long time. Yeah, we probably 50 to 60 billion years, this universe. So the universe will come and the universe will go. The Bodhisattva is still striving. And so it is said that the time taken after this meeting, it didn't even take into account the earlier training. After this, 14 world cycles, 14 universes, and longer than that, kalpas, and even longer than that, he was refining and refining and refining, the parami. So here the difference is described between the fully enlightened Buddha and the Arahant. The Buddha had to make clear to some of the disciples. He said, the Tathagata Bhikkhus, the Arahant, the perfectly enlightened one, is the originator of the path, unarisen before. The producer of the path, unproduced before. The declarer of the path, undeclared before. Right? And then the last passage. This bhikkhus is the distinction, the disparity, the difference between the Tathagata, the Arahant, the perfectly self-enlightened one, self-enlightened Buddha, and a bhikkhu liberated by wisdom. Those that practice under fully enlightened Buddha. This great difference, between an Arahant under the Buddha and a fully enlightened Buddha, self-enlightened Buddha. And then we come to Vijjacharana Sampanno. This means that the Buddha is not just about teaching, the Buddha is also about practicing. Not just studying, but also implementation. Therefore, we, the disciples of the Buddha, we shouldn't just come and listen, read. Yeah, because sometimes it's very easy to just listen. We also need to put it into practice. So this was the quality of the Buddha. He knew Vijja. He had understanding. Understanding of what? The higher knowledge, the sciences. Yeah, he had higher knowledge. And I'll tell you what they are. And then he had charana. That means he put it into practice every day of his life. So let me read to you what I have prepared. He is Vijja. He is endowed with clear vision and knowledge. That means he could turn his mind towards understanding certain phenomena or certain subjects. And he has the knowledge to destroy the defilements that bind us to samsara, that makes us go through birth again and again and again, the suffering of repeated births. And then he is charana. He is endowed with exemplary good conduct. The sila or the morality he practices is not an ordinary sila. It is the sila of an Arya, of a noble one. So whatever he does, it's always good. He can never show a side of him that is hidden, because there's no hidden sides to him, such as anger, such as hatred, such as wanting things that are not necessary. This and the ignorance, this he doesn't have. His behavior was always in accordance with the Dhamma. So those people around him, notice, he was always very, very mindful, always very gentle, always behaved perfectly. And there was no way somebody could find fault with his behavior. He never showed misbehavior. He was, and this is important, moderate in eating. He was moderate in sleeping, and he mindfully guarded his senses. And so these are the two areas of Vijja. It would take a long time to explain, but let me just give you the list. In Vijja, there are 8 knowledges which he has. Now, for those of you who understand, it is very interesting that the opposite of Vijja is, what is the opposite of Avijja? And Avijja means ignorance. It means not knowing. But when the Buddha explained the opposite of Avijja, he used another word. He used the word jnana. He didn't use the word Vijja. So it's very interesting that the Buddha used another word to mean the opposite of Vijja. So we don't have time to go into this discussion, but it is a very interesting subject to look into. So there are 8 of these, and the last of this is the most important. It is knowledge of how to destroy the outflows or the asavas. What are the outflows? The outflows are actually the defiled stream of consciousness coming out from the consciousness. We call them asavas. This is what binds us to samsara. And the Buddha, the fully enlightened Buddha, clearly knew how to cut them off. So this was the height of the knowledge. The charana, and all these 10 are the charana, the great conduct, the contentment, and guarding of 6 sense doors. And he ate moderately. He slept moderately. In fact, he slept 2 hours, 3 hours a day. And for us, if we don't get our 7 hours, 8 hours, we are already hyper. I haven't slept enough. How do I get through the day? I need, don't disturb me. I need my 8 hours of sleep, or else I will get bags under the eyes, and I can't perform my job and all that. But the Buddha was not like that. Because of his mindfulness, he only needed 2-3 hours of sleep per day. The rest of the time, he devoted to helping other living beings. So, we have come to the ending. There are many ways to do the recollections of the Buddha. Yeah, one of those ways is, of course, we chant the Itipiso Bhagava and we fully understand it. So this is the beginning, yeah, of the journey to fully understand. Whenever we are troubled, whenever we feel not at ease, and also sometimes whenever we feel that there are unseen beings, yeah, that are producing negative energy around us. Itipiso Bhagava Arahant. Because the description of the fully enlightened one will clear the atmosphere, will give us courage, will give us motivation, inspiration. So it's good to know exactly what we are chanting, because it allows for peace of mind and clarity in our study and practice. Not only that, the atmosphere around us also becomes positive. But there is another verse, and this verse, the whole thing was taught to me by another teacher when I was living in Penang, Venerable Pandit P. Pemaratna Thero. He used to teach me this verse, but I didn't learn all of it because I had to leave Penang to come back to KL. But this is also a beautiful verse, and if you really want to learn it, I can share the website with you along with the chanting. The chanting is not bad, but it is by a Western monk, so not totally accurate. And it is of the 4 guardian meditations. There are 4 guardian meditations that will guard us as we go through our life. One is Buddhanussati. The second one is Metta. And then reflection on the foulness of the body, and then reflection on death. So this verse, I hope you will allow me to read this verse. Oh, okay. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm trying to hide a notification. Let me read it, chant it. And it goes this way. I will just read the English version about the Buddha. And after this, there is some more. So this verse I have shared here is only about the first 3 qualities, from Arahant, Samma Sambuddho, Vidya Charana Sampanno. It's beautiful. Actually, when you see the whole Buddhanussati verse, it describes the Buddha very well. It goes, alone he destroyed all the corruptions and bad predispositions, and being continually and fully pure, he is worthy of worship at all times. The sage by himself has in every way completely awakened to all things throughout the whole of time. And alone he has arrived at omniscience. Omniscience means he's able to understand everything. And being endowed with great power, good conduct, virtue, and so on, through understanding, insight, and so on, this leader, the leader, was like the shining sky. So this is as far. And the rest of it also have, but it's too long to share it with you today. So this is another way of doing Buddhanussati. One good way of doing it as we chant is also to look at the image of the Buddha. Look at the Buddha while you are chanting. Look at his face. Look at his serene qualities. And you can believe that all these 9 qualities are actually embodied in him. So with that, I've come to the end of my sharing. So with the understanding, we take refuge in the Buddha, who is the safest and the most secure refuge that we can actually find, because it brings us happiness, it brings us peace of mind, it brings us also contentment and security. With that, I thank you. dear Dhamma brothers and sisters.